I think we have, I'll say, a modest agenda for tonight, although not overly overly loaded like sometimes it has been in the past. But I think we might as well get started. So if there's Miss Becerra. So in that case, we've got a full complement of members. We usually begin the meeting with a very brief introduction of the fact that the meeting is being conducted virtually under Governor Baker's emergency order due to the pandemic, which allows meetings to be conducted virtually as long as there's public access. Public access is provided via Zoom or by telephone conference call. And we do typically allow public participation in the meeting, typically at the end of board discussion, or in some cases to introduce a topic or comment on a topic that's before the board. And I would anticipate we would do that tonight as well. The meeting is being recorded, and I believe that's everything we normally cover. The first item on the agenda is an update from the health director. We had some activity, I believe, from the state this weekend, which probably we appreciate being brought up to speed on. So Cheryl, over to you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. So first, I just want to start with an apology to Dr. Singh. I inadvertently left doctor off of her title, and I've corrected all the minutes, but I just wanted to let you know it was completely my fault, and I promise you it won't happen again. So I just wanted to start with that.
No problem, Cheryl. I can understand you have been so busy these days, and it happens. So no problem, please.
Okay, thank you. So as Bill just mentioned, we did have some new guidelines take effect yesterday. And what's happened is Massachusetts is asking that all communities return to phase 3, step 1. So we were in phase 3, step 2. So now every Massachusetts community has been brought back to step 1. And this is being done to respond to an increase in COVID infections and hospitalizations since the Thanksgiving holiday that is now straining our healthcare system. So the return to step 1 will also require the closure of certain businesses, which include indoor performance venues and certain high contact indoor. The limits for a lot of our businesses is reduced from 50% to 40%. And now the limit on outdoor gatherings will be reduced statewide from 100 to 50. So what that means to us is, as I mentioned, the outdoor gatherings are down to no more than 50 people. If someone's looking to hold a gathering of greater than 25 people, they're going to have to provide written notice to us. Outdoor theaters and performance venues are now limited to 25% capacity. The businesses that have gone from 50% to 40% capacity include arcades, driving and flight schools, gyms, health clubs, libraries, museums, retail, offices, places of worship, golf, lodging, and movie theaters. So the reduction in capacity will not apply to businesses that currently don't have a percentage-based capacity limit. And that includes restaurants and laboratories and other close contact personal services. So the restaurants must now require that all patrons wear a mask at all times, except when eating and drinking. So that's a little bit different. So previously you had to put it on, walk into the store, sit down, and you could remove it for the entire time you were sitting at the table. So now if you're sitting there chatting with your friends, you're required to keep your mask on at all times. There's no more than 6 patrons per table. There's a 90-minute limit for time. No musical performances, and food courts must be closed. And then one of the other things, so the gyms now require face coverings to be worn at all times. So, and as we talked about prior to the meeting starting, thank God we have a vaccine. It's getting distributed, as we speak. Right now it's being delivered to some hospitals, and then they're being given priority to medical workers, first and foremost, first responders, long-term care facilities, and any congregate care facilities. And then phase 2 will be people that have a bit higher risk, early education, adults 65 plus, and one comorbidity. And then phase 3, which should begin roughly around April, the vaccine should be available to the general public. The townwide mailing that we have been working on, and I've talked about it the last couple meetings, that should either have been received or about to be received. That mailing went to the post office on Thursday, just waiting for them to sort it and get it out. So if you haven't got it yet, you should be getting that very soon. And then that's all I have for today.
Okay, thank you very much, Cheryl. Any questions from members of the board? Dr. Taylor, I see you unmuted.
I've always been unmuted.
No one mutes Dr. Taylor. I see. Okay, very good. Dr. Jacoby, you are also likewise unmuted. Do you wish to have a question or comment?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I did.
Mr. Cruz.
Yeah. I just, I know it's getting colder, but what about the recreational facilities? Are those back to being closed?
So we had quite a bit of discussion after the last meeting about the skate park, and we had decided to hire some staff to be a monitor at the facility. And we were planning on using some COVID CARE Act money to pay for that person. And then it snowed. So technically the parks are not closed, but I will tell you that the complaints have died down, and I suspect that's probably due to the weather.
Okay.
I can say that unfortunately I was out for a walk the other day in the skate park. There were probably 10, 15 kids there. Nobody had a mask on. I walked by the fields. There were 3 or 4 groups, probably 100 people all told, and not one of them had a mask on. Just for your information.
That's not good, and thank you for that.
Yeah, we should investigate it. I mean, the board's, sort of, I'll call it suggestion, direction, whatever, last meeting, as I recall it, was, we wanted not independent. We wanted town verification of the fact that, there was inappropriate behavior at the athletic facilities rather than, anecdotal reports from the public. But, Dr. Jacoby is a member of the Board of Health, so I'd say that kind of counts. So, it sounds like maybe the idea of a monitor or some other action would be a good one.
Yeah,
Perhaps that.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Jacoby. I've witnessed the same thing on my walks. I don't think it has changed much since phase 3B going back into it. I also noticed at the construction site at the new school, the workers aren't as consistent as they should be with meeting the requirements.
I can take care of that for you, and I will inquire about the monitor tomorrow morning.
Okay, great. And, perhaps the monitor could rotate between the skate park and other fields, Dr. Singh, I believe you also look like you'd like to make a comment.
Yeah, I just, sorry, I just wanted to check with Cheryl that the information that is being sent out, does it have the information regarding the vaccine? And does it also clearly says that the vaccine is free so that the citizens don't hesitate to go for the vaccine?
I don't think we included the vaccine information in the letter. It was finalized prior to the news of it being out. So we can make sure that we do news blasts and get that information.
Might have just lost the last part of what you said, Cheryl. I think you said you're going to do a news blast and make sure that the information gets out. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. I'll put that in. No, I just made a note and I'll make sure that we get that information out to the public.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments for the health director? Any comments or questions from the public?
Two things, Bill.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't see.
Yeah, that's all right. I was trying to be unmuted. Be muted as much as possible. Cheryl, are they done the postings at the fields and the skate park about mask required?
They have, we printed up some, like, they look like they're on the metal wire frame and they're about the size of a political sign or an informational sign that you would see in people's yards, but those have been placed along the rail trail, some of the parks, the athletic fields, and I think we still have some additional ones if you know of areas that still need them.
Okay, just with the non-compliance, I didn't know if the signs had already been posted more prominently. The second question is, I know there was, since we're talking about enforcement, yeah, there was a case at the last meeting. Do you want to just, I mean, if that's been resolved?
So, yeah, so after the meeting, I think you probably all saw their response to the letter that was given to them by the Department of Labor and Standards. So I reviewed the letter and noted some inaccuracies, and but we, including myself and the DLS are all, they've closed the case because everybody believes now that the procedures are being followed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, Charlie, are there any questions or comments from members of the public?
It's not, no.
All right. Well, hearing none, then typically next on the agenda is Director York. Please fill us in on what's happening in the world of COVID.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you. Can you hear me okay? I'm having issues with my Wi-Fi.
No, we can hear you fine. Thank you.
Okay. So COVID-wise, we are at 423 cases overall with 56 people on isolation as of tonight. 342 recovered and 25 deaths. That has gone up by 4 in the last few weeks. And unfortunately, those folks were in congregate care. Couple of updates on the congregate care cases. Benchmark, the Inn at Brook. They have only had 3 staff members who have been positive since that initial testing of a staff member about 3 weeks ago. So they haven't had any residents that I have heard of. I did reach out to the nursing manager today, but it was late in the day. I apologize, and I didn't get an answer back by tonight. Life Care Center, which is the biggest concern, obviously, since 11/20 when they started with their first case within the building. As of today, I talked to Chris Foy. They have moved 18 residents who have recovered off into the recovery unit over at Life Care in the last week. There should be 6 others that are going in the next few days to the recovery unit. They do have 10 active positive patients, residents that are in-house. 3 are currently at Emerson. So those are the positive cases that they have in the building right now and at Emerson. They tested 140 staff and residents last Thursday, and everybody was negative, which is great news. The quarantine unit, they haven't had to place anyone on there since 12/6. So that's really good news. And I don't believe they've moved anyone off of that quarantine unit, as everyone's been testing positive since last Thursday would have been the last test. So I think a week ago, they had a couple folks that tested positive. There was 1 resident who was symptomatic, who was already on the quarantine unit that moved to isolation. So that's good news. You know, I think, and they feel like they've finally turned the corner since the start of the cases that they've had since the 20th of November. So overall, I believe, if memory serves, they've had 35 residents 20, I don't know the staff off the top of my head. I will look it up and get back to you. It's about 22, I believe, staff members. All the staff have recovered except for about 6. So they have recovered from their isolation. And then, as I said, they had all negative tests last Thursday, which is great news. Doing contact tracing, definitely, it's been busy over the last few weeks with the cases going up. I'm glad to see that, you know, isolation, people are recovering, people are, for the most part, recovering at home. We have had some folks go into the hospital. I have a couple people that are there now. Trends, I know that that's always a question. Still household transmission, that's the biggest thing and the main issue that we've seen. Cheryl and I were on Java with John on Friday, and a resident had asked that question. And as far as other than the 2 congregate living, mainly life care, all the rest have been household transmission, whether it's within your own home, because a family member is positive, or folks who are either related to each other or close friends who are comfortable with each other that have gone into, you know, either an Acton home, or the Acton resident has gone into someone else's home. It is household transmission is the main transmission that we're seeing in the town. AB started back to class on the 7th, last Monday. We do, as of yesterday, have 2 positive students, and they did contact tracing. There's about 40 contacts, unfortunately. There were also our 2 staff members, I believe, within the place, but there weren't any tracing back to the staff members. What else? I think that's probably just busy with lots of calls.
Well, thank you,
Thank you.
Heather. Do you anticipate the busyness on contact tracing to be continuing for a while?
I think so. You know, there were a lot of concerning calls that I had over the last couple of weeks, especially since Thanksgiving. Lot of transmission during Thanksgiving dinner. After the weekend after Thanksgiving, folks seem to be doing a lot of, you know, visiting family and friends. There's been a lot of birthday parties, showers, housewarmings. So it's definitely concerning, but the Thanksgiving holiday, that is just continuing on. You know, those folks that were positive from Thanksgiving then exposed others, which have then exposed others who are positive, and it keeps moving down the line. I know that you're all watching the numbers daily like I am. And the huge surge that we're in with these extreme numbers on a daily basis I don't see it ending, especially with, we're in Hanukkah right now, we're going into Christmas next week, you know, then we're going into the new year. It's definitely concerning that, you know, people are doing a lot of things that maybe over the state limit on numbers, like a Thanksgiving dinner or a housewarming. So that's definitely concerning, and I don't foresee it slowing down anytime soon, honestly.
Okay, thank you. Have you seen any uptick in the seasonal flu, as either in conjunction or independent from COVID?
You know, I haven't. That's a great question. I know a lot of doctors' offices are doing that in conjunction with COVID at times. They're doing a flu to rule the flu out. There were some flu cases that have come through early in the fall, but I have not seen anything come through recently. And I haven't heard, you know, Dr. Knights had given me an update. Oh, this was quite a few weeks ago, that they had already seen flu at Acton Medical. So, you know, it's out there. But most places, if it's a doctor's office and not just a COVID testing site, they are testing for flu at the same time.
Okay, thank you. Questions from members of the board? No questions? Okay.
I had a question, Cheryl. You pretty much continuously say that household transmissions are the major issue here. So any idea why we're restricting businesses and restaurants if that's not where the cases are coming from?
So are you
Was
asking?
that question for Cheryl or for me?
Either one. I mean,
You
Who
want
would
me
like
to take it?
You
So,
take it.
I mean, honestly, that's what we're seeing in Acton, but I would believe, you know, given the numbers that we're seeing of positive cases within businesses themselves, that they're definitely playing a factor. And I believe that, you know, this is, the restrictions are in place to assist with that.
I did see an email come through to the Board of Health site. It was from a local restaurant, and I won't point it out, but it seemed that the response was very very proactive. So, you know, there was that issue for a restaurant, but it seemed that the proprietor was aggressively taking action to make sure it didn't propagate to his patrons.
Yeah, for the most part, we're getting, you know, I think I mentioned that, I didn't mention it tonight, but, you know, I'm probably dealing with a couple businesses a day at this point, and they're all, you know, really good. I think you might have got, you might be referring to an email that was sent to the board about a veterinary hospital. But when I talked to her, they're only allowing like 2 visits. They're, you know, she said about 14 feet apart. They have PPE on. So, you know, when I talk to businesses in general, they're all doing a pretty good job of compliance with maybe a few exceptions, but just require a little bit of education. So.
Okay. Well, thank you. No, actually, I was thinking of an email from the proprietor of a restaurant in town, but
yeah, we get those too.
yeah, I'm sure. All right. Well, thank you. Other questions, Dr. Singh?
Yeah, I was wondering that they might be doing the restrictions to prevent even further surge, because we are already seeing so much increase in the number. So to be on the cautious side, the governor has put the orders to restrict the number of individuals in the restaurant and other places. So that might be the reason.
Okay. Questions, other questions or comments from members of the board? Okay. Well, on other questions or comments from members of the public?
There is not.
All right. Well, then, as always, thank you again, Heather, for joining us and for keeping us informed, and also for out there on the front lines fighting the battles. So thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
So next up, Cheryl.
So the next item on the agenda, we have Lindsay Hurley, that I'll bring her over to allow her to talk in 1 minute, but she wants to speak with you all about 5G. So, you know, I'll let her talk, and I'm sure you probably read, but she's concerned with the health effects, and she wants the board to consider taking action. So if it's okay with you, I'll let her do her presentation.
All right, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right, Lindsay, you just need to unmute yourself and you should be able to talk.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Good evening. And, I'll just introduce and say you'd asked for an opportunity to speak to the board. We normally always are welcome to get input from residents. So, you know, I'd just say whatever it is it's you would be interested in presenting, please go ahead. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you. And thank you for being here. Is it possible that I can screen share? I have a presentation I wanted to show.
I believe so.
How would I do that? I don't see anything here.
Is that the one that you gave me, Lindsay?
No, I mean, it's really just a format, so I don't need to share it, but it's just about 5 slides that kind of format what I'm talking about. So I don't, you can't tell me how to, there's nothing here that says I can screen share.
Oh,
Yeah, it would have been helpful if you had sent it to me and then I could have pulled it up for you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay.
All right.
well, actually, do you have a chat button?
Yes.
So I don't know if the chat will allow you to do attachments or not.
Pop out. No, it doesn't. All I have is
Okay.
a thing that says I can close or pop out. But that doesn't. Well, I'll just go over my information because, like I said, it's more just talking points to guide me through. But what I will do is send it to you because there's a lot of links in here with information that I think you would like. So, well, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Lindsay Hurley. I am a 25-year resident of Acton. My children both graduated from AB, and I am a healthcare professional. I work with, I'm a holistic health coach, and I work with energy healing technologies, which is probably the reason why this issue is something that I care about. And my goal here tonight is to ensure safe technology in Acton. I'd like to just preface by saying I'm not anti-technology by any means. This is about making technology safe. And so 5G is 5th generation technology, which enables faster entertainment, downloads, smart cities, etc. It uses 3 and 4G wavelengths, which can go through buildings and trees, but 5G cannot. So with 5G, they will want to clear cut trees and put a lot of these installations, the cells, practically at every 2 to 12 houses because they have a very small wavelength and they can't travel very far. So they're putting up thousands of these. Their plan is to put up millions of them all over the country. And there are already thousands of 5G satellites in the sky. However, money has never been set aside by the industry for safety testing, third-party safety testing. I think they've done what they call safety tests on their own, and they say it's safe, but their information conflicts with the information that many scientists and who have been studying it have said. So there's an organization called the Environmental Health Trust, and they put out a lot of information about this, and I'll share that with you. Dr. Martin Paul is a professor from Washington State University, and he is one of the foremost doctors, experts in this field. And he has put out a paper, 5G Risk for the EU, US, and international health, compelling evidence for 8 distinct types of great harm caused by electromagnetic field exposures and the mechanism that causes them. So this paper that he put out, again, is in this presentation, and he says, cancer, DNA mutation, infertility, neurological damage, cell death, oxidative stress, hormone disruption, excess calcium and signaling disruption are very evidence of clear danger of all of these is found in his report. It's quite an extensive report. So one of my main reasons for this concern is for children. In Acton, of course, we care terribly about our children, and yet they are the most vulnerable population because they are developing. Their skulls are very thin. If you have a grown person talking on a cell phone, holding it to their head, the radio waves are getting about 1/3 of the way into their skull, inside their skull. A 10-year-old child holding the same cell phone at their ear, the radio waves are getting about 2/3 of the way through their head. A 5-year-old child holding a cell phone to their head, the radio waves are going all the way through. And this is clearly affecting the children as they develop and grow and their brains, and what we care dearly about our children. In 2015, Harvard University published a study called Captured Agency, and it's about conflict of interest in the FDA and in the FCC. So what the industry has done is they've got their people, their sympathizers, in high positions in those agencies. And that's why when reports come out showing clear dangers about these technologies, that they're virtually ignored by these regulation agencies. And that's one of the big problems. It's the same playbook as the tobacco industry had back when they were in their heyday. So I just want you to know we are not the first to do this. There's a lot of towns and states and countries who are taking action about this. 5G has been, or Wi-Fi in France, they don't allow it near the schools and things like that. Burlington, Massachusetts actually passed one of the most protective small cell policy. And what they asked was that the wireless companies have a real protocol for the way they apply for to put their cells in, and the whole procedure. And then they ask them to pay for that, of course. And they ask them to come back every year after to check the tower, check the cells, make sure they're still within regulations. And Verizon withdrew their application for 7 cell towers in Burlington because of that. They didn't want to set a precedent by having to pay money and take responsibility for what they wanted to install. So a lot of other towns around, such as Bedford, Lincoln, Southborough, Andover, Natick, Woburn, are looking at the same kind of comprehensive policy that they might instill, have in their town, just as protection when these companies want to put these cells in. I'm also I'm attaching that policy that you can look at. I also have a recording of the presentation given at the Shrewsbury Board of Health by CC Doucette, who is the founder of Mass Safe Technology. And last January in Concord, they had an expert forum with speakers from all over the world about this issue. More than 300 people were there, and I'm also enclosing that recording. It's long, but it's fascinating. And then New Hampshire, as a state, just in November, they released an environmental 5G study. It's a 300-page study, and it's actually been noted in around the world for how proactive it is and comprehensive it is. And I have a list here of other towns around the state: Dover, Sherborne. In Wayland, they have a 900-foot setback for any cell towers, a bylaw for that. Concord, Chappaquiddick, Holliston, many towns in the Commonwealth have taken action to protect their citizens and stand up to and just make sure this is done safe. So that's pretty much all I have. As I said, I will send this to you, and there's a lot of information for you to look at. I'd like to offer, if you'd like further presentation, CC Doucette has said she'd be happy to come and present to you herself. She started, as I said, Massachusetts for Safe Technology, and she now speaks around the world on the issue. She's quite expert, and she certainly knows what's going on in Massachusetts. She's from Ashland, and she's working with Senator Spilka and Representative Lewis on state legislation. And she presented with me, with Senator Eldridge and Representative Senna recently, who both encouraged us to bring the issue to our town. So that's it for me. If you have any questions, I will try to answer them. I will let you know, however, I am not a scientist. I am, and I will do my best to give you the information that I know so far.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ms. Early. And I mean, I do appreciate you bringing this to our attention. And I'll tell you, I looked at some of the read-ahead material that you forwarded through the Board of Health
Great,
portal.
thank you.
So, and I read the New Hampshire study, and I read some of their references, and I looked at some of the other things, and I think, you know, uh, uh, hmm, there's like all issues, the science is not crisp as you'd like it to be. I know one of our members who works with recent, you know, vaccines knows that the science can be if you select your approach, you can favor one outcome versus another, and you know it misses a couple points, like that 5G is actually two distinct frequencies. The one that they seem to be most concerned about is in the KU band of the microwaves, um, but that's actually very different than some of the other things that you mentioned about you know penetration depths, and they also don't mention the intensity of the radiation, which is a lot of the biological effects that are mentioned in the reports. You know, you can absolutely create them if you turn the power up high enough, and so that's one of the things that is often looked at is, you know, well, exactly how much energy are you radiating? I only mention this is not to dispute the findings and the fact that we should look at it, but you know, I believe this is a case where a national standard or at least a statewide standard is probably most appropriate. This is just my view, by the way. This is not the board's view. Because, you know, you're going to be moving out of Acton. You know, and I don't mean residents. I mean, you know, yourself. You're going to be traveling among to other communities. And you're going to be working in different locations. You're going to be shopping in different stores. And, you know, the standard should be roughly, I mean, this is my opinion, the standard should be roughly uniform. It's either safe or it's not. And if it's not, then we should figure out the ways to make it safe. So, you know, I guess that's to sum my opinion, which is, I think actually the Burlington one, I also read that. That was actually done by the planning board, if I'm not mistaken, not the Board of Health. Um, so there's been, you know, lots of different organizations that have tried to, you know, tailor the response to their community, which is certainly appropriate. But I guess I kind of struggle to think about what you know, how this could be applied to Acton in terms of actual concrete measures. But in any event, I've said my 2 cents. I should probably ask other members. Do you have questions or comments for either Ms. Hurley or wish to offer an opinion? Mr. Conaby.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. As you point out, there's a lot of technical issues, and there's also a lot of issues as far as the health and safety being preempted by some of the federal and state regulations. But a lot of the cell towers are regulated by proximity, which are zoning bylaws. So that would probably be the first step in the primary means that most local governments have for doing that. So I think that would be something which, if she's concerned about it, should probably be a way to try to address that concern, but something definitely we should be looking at. And I thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conaby. Mr. Cruz, I think you also had a comment.
I did. Lindsay, yeah, thank you for the presentation. It's good information, but I had one question about these frequencies for 5G. There are other devices that exist that use the same frequencies. I just have a question. Why are we hearing about this now?
Because they're being brought out now, because what is happening is they, I think we already have a provision in town that allows them to put up cell towers outside of the need to look at health considerations. And so that alone is of concern to me. And if we don't have some control over what we're allowing to be put up in our town until after the damage is done, and it's a little bit late, it's about being proactive with protecting our citizens in the town.
Yeah.
It's moving out now. It's coming out now. And so, you know, we're actually a lot later than other towns.
Oh, are there any 5G phones out on the market now? Do you know?
Yes, the iPhone 12 is 5. Well, actually, Samsung's had one for quite a while, but the iPhone 12 is 5G.
Oh, so I guess if there are any detrimental effects, we would probably at least start getting some reports on from these phones.
I wouldn't count on that at all, because it's not, you can't tell what the effects are and what, when people get sick. I have a friend, well, there's no reports that say when a person gets cancer that it's caused by your 5G phone. However, if you want to look at your iPhone, any of you who have iPhones, if you go into it, you can see that there is a legal disclaimer that says you should not hold this against your head. And if you go into settings and then go to general and then about and then legal, it says it in the iPhone right there. Do not hold this next to your body. So to me, that's kind of the phone company saying there's a problem. You got to be careful. We're never told to look at that, but it's there. So there is concern.
Oh, is this a problem with 4G and 3G as well?
Well, those are also microwave levels of radiation. So there is concern, yes. I mean, the preference that I would like to see, the safer way to do this technology is to have it wired, to go back to having things hardwired. It's a much more effective, efficient kind of technology. And basically when you're in the schools right now with 3G, the radiation's flying through the schools. And although the kids aren't in the schools, when they are, they're basically swimming in these pools of radiation. So a preference for that would be to hardwire that. And that's what part of safe technology is talking about.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments? Dr. Taylor.
Yes, I would like to make a comment. First of all, in the electromagnetic scale, none of these are ionizing radiation, such as X-rays and things like that. So we know that too many X-rays and MRIs and et cetera can put you at risk of side effects because it can change cells in the body, but that has not been shown for the scale we're talking about. And when we're talking about risk, it's very difficult to measure risk because exposure and then outcome could be 20 years apart.
Right.
We're not talking about something that happens immediately. Even lead poisoning takes quite a while. These would take much longer. So I do know the FDA has a radiologic responsibility and they measure that. They also have to keep up to date with all the scientific literature on that, which would include 5G. But again, it's very difficult to say we need to take action now because there's no apparent scientific evidence to measure the risk.
But I did share, there are many studies. There's a lot of scientific evidence. There's a lot of scientific studies that say that it's a very clear danger.
Not according to the FDA. The only evidence of danger was when a group of rats were given whole body radiation from 5G and they developed some tumors. Mm-hmm. But the problem with that's not the same level you would get from a phone. If you are concerned about children, maybe they shouldn't have a 5G phone under 5 years of age. But we don't know that. But if you want to be cautious, that seems to me an immediate thing you can do rather than banning 5G from the world.
Okay.
Well, thank you. And I mean, we very much appreciate you bringing this to our attention, and we don't mean to seem like we want to be argumentative. But having read over the some of the material, as Dr. Taylor mentions, those are things I said is, they used levels that you wouldn't normally see in communications, and the KU band that I mentioned, 28 gigahertz, is a common radar frequency. So the weather radars, in fact, use it. So pardon me. So we're probably we have been exposed to it for many years, but at extremely low levels. There's other just little things, and I'll just to give you an idea of the complexity of it. One of the features of 5G is it does beamforming. So it uses the active construction, deconstruction of the radio waves from different antennas to be able to form a beam. And what they do is they follow you with the beam. So as you move with your phone, the beam follows you. But if you're not talking on the phone, there's no beam. So again, it's a case where the people that aren't on the phone get very little exposure from 5G. It's actually you could call it a health benefit, in the sense that the previous generations, they did a wide area broadcast. You were in a sector of the antennas, but now they're going to use spot beams, and they can do hundreds of spot beams off one antenna face. So it just is a thing where the discussion is very complex, and that's why I was just suggesting, I think, an appropriate national or state standard would be the way to go to really address any concerns. I don't think this board has the resources or the expertise to evaluate many conflicting factors and then try to come to a conclusion, that would be correct. That would, in other words, would match the science to the outcome. So that's my my personal hesitancy in that area. Anyway, other than that, questions or comments from members of the board? Okay. Well, Ms. Hurley, I'd like to thank you very much for bringing us to us. It's certainly given us something to think about and consider. I think is, time with a little opportunity for reflection, the board will look at whether we wish to take this up further and move it forward. But
All right, do you think can I check back with you in a certain amount of time, or will you recommend that I do go to the planning board, to another group in the town, to talk about it from another point of view?
well, you certainly can. I mean, that would certainly be, an opportunity for you. I can tell you, I do remember the planning board's previous action on cell towers. The thing that we were looking to, or they were looking to avoid, was proliferation of towers. So one of the things is they looked at, siting them in advantageous locations, advantageous for communication, and then requiring multiple carriers to be on each tower, so that each carrier wasn't putting up their own tower. So I mean, they were trying to be efficient and effective about how we implemented cell towers in town. I'm not sure what their response would be to this particular situation. But in answer to your first question, yes, Mr. Conaby.
Yeah, I think the question about the regulation of cell towers in town, the planning board has taken the lead on that, as far as, like you suggest, the number of carriers, the location, the demonstration of need. There's a whole bunch of criteria in it, and it would be appropriate to revisit that bylaw with the changing technology. I think that was something that was proposed a number of years ago with some discussions with the planning board. So I would encourage her to talk with them and to update those regulations and the town bylaw as it relates to the 5G and the new information and technology.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Bill, I do have a member of the audience with their hand raised. Do you wish to call on them?
Yes, sure. That'd be fine.
Okay, call in user number 1. I'm going to allow you to talk. Please state your name and address.
Hi, it's Sarah from West Acton. Can you hear me?
We
Yeah.
can.
Yes, yes. So I'd like to make a couple comments on the presentation that was just made.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So the relative to the comment that the zoning, yes, certainly zoning can be a way to address the siting issues, where and how far and this kind of thing. But the Board of Health controls health regulations, and they can slow the process down by requiring this and that, like Burlington had done. And the Board of Health's regulations can include much stricter regulations than state or feds. Somebody said that we should wait or could wait or rely on the feds, but they're so controlled by the corporations that I doubt they're ever going to do anything about this. There was a little bit of a confusion in the comments because people started talking about the phone. The phone is an individual choice. I don't think Lindsay's asking the town to try and control phones. This is about the antennas being right next to your head on a pole 24/7. And so that's one thing. Relative to the feds deciding that something is safe, the Attorney General in the Concord water bottle, single water bottle ban declared that we don't have to prove that it's harmful. They made a very compelling case that the the Associated Industries did not challenge. The AG said that we only have to prove that we believe it's harmful. As long as the bylaw is not discriminatory to companies and it applies to all companies, it's allowed under home rule. And so just like plastic bags, I don't think that waiting for the state is a good idea. I think that it's important to put our toe in the water, to take a stand, to, just like we stand out on the corner for racial justice, to stand out for the health of our children. And so I do urge you to at least allow say another 10 minutes or 20 minutes for us to bring some experts into town and have them tell us more. I was somewhat on the fence and, oh, geez, I'm not sure what this is, but I'm going to go. I went to that in Concord, the grammar school was packed. It was 150 people, 200 people, something like that. And a line after line of doctors and scientists were giving their presentation. I was very convinced, and I'm very concerned. And I would like to have those experts talk to you guys so I can see what you guys think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tara. Well, at this point, like I said, typically the board has an opportunity for reflection. Typically, at the next meeting, I would get a sense of what the members' interest is in moving us forward, and we would act accordingly.
All right. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Ms. Early.
I'll get back to you before the next meeting. Is that something I could try?
Yes, of course.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl, what's next? You're on mute, Cheryl.
Yeah, I realize that. Next up, we have emergency beaver trapping permit. The applicant is the USGS. They've come before you previously, and they are looking to get an emergency beaver trapping permit. So this is that one, if you guys can recall, it was about 4 years ago. They had a beaver activity that was causing issues downstream of the Gage station. So the health department has reviewed this and believes that there is a threat to human health and safety. So we're recommending that we issue a beaver trapping permit as of December 15th, so tomorrow, for 10 days. And this would be breaching the use of restricted traps, as well as breaching the dams and dikes. The applicant has also submitted to me this afternoon a PowerPoint presentation. If the board's inclined, I can show that to you, or if you don't need to see that, that's fine too. But I also do have the applicant available to speak with you.
All right, thank you. I do remember this issue previously, and I remember the board's decision was to proceed with the beaver trapping permit. So I guess I would say if there's no substantial changes, I'll just ask, do any members wish to hear the further presentation? And I'm not, my speaker view has collapsed a little bit, but I don't see anyone looking to have the presentation. So I think we can dispense with that, Cheryl.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
Mr. Conaby.
Yeah, I would think that the applicant state anything that they would like to add at this point. Just give them an opportunity to talk since they've been patiently waiting.
Okay.
Yeah, give me one sec to.
The health department's already confirmed the threat, Cheryl.
Correct.
Thank you.
This is Dave Armstrong. If you can unmute yourself, you should be allowed to talk.
Hi,
Okay.
good evening. Good evening, sir.
Hello. Yes, hello. Thank you for taking my application. We've been dealing with this issue kind of all summer at the Nashoba Brook Gage. We have tried as best we can to remove a few dams that were starting to be built to see if we could discourage the beaver from building them so we wouldn't have to trap, and they're persistent. So they've rebuilt them. And the unfortunate thing that happened this summer was that the Mass Drought Task Force was wanting to use the Nashoba Brook Gauge to look at how the state was recovering from the streamflow was recovering from the drought, and they weren't able to because of the issues we had with the beaver. So we're going ahead and requesting to remove a few out of the system. They'll always be in that river system. There's beaver and otter there, and we're very careful not to catch the otter or put traps anywhere where anyone's dogs would be harmed. That's why we do it ourselves instead of hiring it out, so that we can control that. But we're working pretty closely with Bettina Abe and Tom Tidman in the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
So
And
appreciate
David, go ahead. David Armstrong is a licensed trapper. And if that was going to be a next question.
yes.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
I presume this is for breaching and trapping?
Yes, we trap a few first and then we breach and hope that they don't rebuild. It actually blew out itself here with that snowstorm, but they've been rebuilding it. So we're hoping to discourage it from going on through the winter.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any members have further questions or comments or care to make a motion? Mr. Cruz.
Yeah, I just have one question. Sorry, Mark, I know you were going to make it.
No problem. Please go ahead. I did not mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, I had one question. I seem to recall that the proposal last time was to install a device to either let water flow, or maybe it was to discourage building of another dam. Mr. Armstrong, is my memory correct, or am I misremembering things?
No, we were considering that. We actually went. It was in 2016 that we did this last, so we went 4 years without needing to do that. So we were kind of hopeful that that the last one had worked. Probably about the best result we could have had. What we did do was remove a number of the down trees that were there, and the beaver were kind of tying their dams into those. We left a few that are up high. But what is interesting to us is that the beaver have built the dam almost the exact same place they did last time. So we're thinking that now, maybe that's something we have to follow through on. We were kind of learning about it before and seeing how long we could go without having to do it. But It seemed that the gauge used to be downstream where there is a constriction. We moved it upstream because the big meadow down there was always being dammed. And that natural constrictions like that are where it's probably a man-made constriction, but that's where the beaver tend to build the dams. So it may be that we need to lay in one of those black corrugated pipes with the wire covers over the ends to help discourage that. The trouble is, if they build a dam and we have a beaver deceiver through it, it still affects the upper end of the flow. So a beaver deceiver through a dam doesn't really solve our issue. We have to not have the dam be there because of the effects on the water levels upstream.
Okay. Would you need a permit for the device?
I think we would have to work with the CONSCOM for that, yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Not health. Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right.
Mark, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. I mean, if there's no other comments, I'll make sure when Bill's ready, let me know.
We're ready.
All right, then I would move to grant the dam breaching and beaver trapping permit to this applicant.
Very good. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Cruz. We have a motion made and seconded. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. Is there any comments from members of the public, Cheryl?
There's not.
In that case, I'll call on members to vote. We'll do it by roll. I'll just go down my speakers gallery here. Dr. Taylor, you're first.
I'll vote aye.
Mr. Cruz,
Aye.
Mr. Conaby,
Aye.
Ms. Becerra.
Aye.
I also vote aye, so motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you.
Cheryl, what's next?
So the last thing on the agenda is a variance request for 4 West Street. This system is in failure. They are looking for, I'm trying to find the plan here. They are looking for a variance to from the setback to the cellar wall from the SAS. And the setback is from 20 feet to 5.7 feet. We've asked them to install a impervious barrier that is on the plan. We looked at this pretty closely to see if there was any way we could shift the system. But unfortunately, by shifting the system, it was going to require additional variances. So we decided to come before you with the 1 variance. If you want, I can pull up the plan if you want to take a look at it.
That might be helpful.
Where's David Martin, though?
All right.
He's so much better at this than I am. So, all right, let's see if you guys can see.
I think you're doing fine.
All right, so if you can see here, the house, and then the impervious barrier is at the corner of the house, closest to the edge of the SAS. Like I said, there's wetlands around this property. And it's a little bit tight because of that. So we're recommending that this variance be granted.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from members of the board? Mr. Conaby? Oh,
No, it doesn't. I mean, it looks like a difficult site, and I'm a little concerned that looks like the floor slab elevation is up, going to be below, what is it, 204, and the field is at what, 201? Trying to look at the contours, but it's definitely going to be a challenging site. If you find this to be the maximum feasible compliance of the Department of Review, it seems reasonable.
okay, thank you. Other members? Okay, if no one has any questions or comments,
Yeah, I just had one. Is this a conventional or is this a alternative system?
Yeah, I think it's a Presby. Hold on. Sorry, I should have looked at that.
Looked like it was a microfast.
Yeah, so there's definitely a microfast. I'm just trying to look to see what the SAS is.
Yeah, I guess could we alleviate Mark's concern about elevation of that SAS by going with something else? An AI system. I mean, I don't know. I'm just curious.
It is an IA system. I apologize. I don't have what that is in front of me. And as Mark said, there is a what do you call it? A fast tank. So it is essentially being treated as well. Sorry, I don't know why it's not in the plan.
I would recommend that you get a plan that has that
Yeah.
detail in it.
I agree.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cruz. Other questions or comments from members? Does anyone wish to make a motion?
I'll move that we grant the variance with the conditions as noted.
Thank you, Ms. Becerra. Is there a second?
I'd second it, Bill, but I would suggest, considering Mike's comment, that we also have the plan approved by the department. You could note that question so that the plan is compliant and has all the details noted for approval.
Okay, sounds reasonable. I assume you're okay with that, Ms. Becerra?
Oh, I suppose so.
All right. Very good. We have a motion made and seconded, and if there's no further discussion, Cheryl, any comments from members of the public?
There is not.
Very good. In that case, members, I'll call for your to vote. I'll go backwards this time. Ms. Becerra,
Aye.
Mr. Conaby,
Aye.
Mr. Cruz,
Aye.
Dr. Taylor,
Aye.
and I also vote aye. Motion carries unanimously. So I believe we have a set of minutes to review.
We do. So the minutes are from November 30th. As I mentioned, when we first started the meeting, I did add a doctor in front of Rika's name. So you'll see that noted here. And then at the bottom, she had made a motion as well. So I fixed both of those.
Great. Would you mind just sort of scrolling through the minutes? And why I'm asking, Cheryl, is there were a couple items that I guess I would just be curious to know how it how it went. Mr. Conaby hit on one earlier in the meeting about the difficult company, but you mentioned like the large soccer gathering. How did that go?
So I did not, so fortunately, we had a fairly significant snowstorm on the Saturday. So that impeded their ability to have the event. But I do think they had it Friday, and I'm not sure if they got there on Sunday, but I did ask the police to go by and check on it. And I did not hear any negative comments about them being there. So it seems like it went okay.
Great, thank you. And I see the next paragraph is about the company, which I think we've gotten an answer to.
Yeah.
And there was a couple other. Well, maybe I'm just misremembering.
So I think Heather updated you about life care.
So the Title V inspectors, I guess that's been resolved, right? The conflict.
Yep, we
Okay.
made sure that notes are in the file, so those are already there, so.
Okay, I guess that's all there was.
Okay.
Yeah, I had one question. T5, is that readily understood as Title 5?
I can change that.
Okay.
Okay. I had no
Yeah.
comments.
What about the Arlington Street, but actually particularly the Main Street beaver trapping? Was that completed? Because that was in close proximity to the USGS application today.
Yeah, they were out there the following day. I have not heard that they needed an additional 10 days, so I assume that I just didn't get an update on how many were trapped, but I can get a feedback for you for the next meeting if you'd like.
Yeah, I presume we'll be hearing about the beavers at some point, but I just wanted to double check since it was in somewhat close proximity related to the application tonight.
Okay.
Okay, well, there a motion to move the minutes forward?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. We have a motion made and seconded to accept the minutes with some corrections as noted. I'll just ask for a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 I heard 4 ayes, and I also vote aye, so the minutes are accepted. Thank you. And sorry, this is a very brief aside, but I know Ms. Hurley mentioned about the disclaimer on an iPhone. I don't know if you're still listening. If you are, just to let you know, I happened to just be glancing at it while we were conducting other business. I could not find what you're referring to. So if you have an opportunity to forward that, that would be great. So I did follow the general about, disclosures or legal, but I didn't see that piece. Maybe it's unique to the new iPhones. And I have an iPhone 8 here. Anyway, that I think concludes our business for tonight. Cheryl, do you think situation might warrant a potential meeting before our next regularly scheduled one? Because I think our next regularly scheduled one is not until January. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It's January 4th. Well, we have 2 more Mondays. We have the 21st and we have the 28th. If you want, I can post one just in case.
I think that might make sense.
Would you prefer to be the 21st or the 28th or both?
Oh boy. Neither one is great. Any members have any suggestions?
28th.
Okay. We have it. We can then wish each other a better new year. All right. Well, any other businesses that we should cover tonight?
No, I'm good.
Any other last comments or questions from members or members of the public?
Nothing from the public.
Great. Well, in that case, Dr. Taylor, I happen to see you're unmuted, and you have a role that you are very good at fulfilling.
I'll yield to another board member.
Oh, okay.
I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Becerra. Motion to adjourn. We'll do that. Motion is made and seconded. Please voice vote. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
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 I heard 4 ayes. I also vote aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you all very much. As always, it's been a difficult path that we're following with this pandemic, but thank you all for hanging in there and providing your expertise. So good night and
Thanks
happy.
for your leadership, Bill.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bill. Remember, my term is temporary. Just saying. All right.
Is that a threat?
But we very much appreciate.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Singh. All right. Good night, everyone.
All right, good night, everybody.
Happy
Good night.
holidays. Good night.
Happy holidays. Bye.
Bye.